But we just want to also, we got to touch on, I mean, we're from New York. We've seen what's happened over the past week or so, really since the Giants, before they won the Super Bowl. Jeremy Lin, Linsanity. It's just incredible. I can go all day with this. It's incredible what he's done with the Knicks so far.
I mean, he's been able to win about 7 in a row. Now, I mean, 7 in a row he's won. They lost last night to the Hornets, but even in that game he had 26 points, and he just basically has come out of nowhere. He came out of Harvard, was rejected by 2 NBA teams, went undrafted, and he was sleeping, as we know, on his brother's couch in the Lower East Side. And so many teams had a crack at this guy, and for some reason they passed him over. And it just, for some reason, that's what happens with scouting. In every sport, they basically try to scout based on potential but not on intangibles. And I think that's how Jeremy Lin slipped through the cracks.
And, you know, a lot of people have really compared him to Tim Tebow, and I know your thoughts on comparing him to Tim Tebow, but I mean, Jeremy Lin really just never really got a chance, and people have really said, this makes no sense to me. People say that he can't do well playing with Carmelo Anthony, and he hasn't played a game with him yet. Still hasn't returned yet. Mike D'Antoni refusing to put him in again to risk another injury, but I think Carmelo and Lin will be very, very good as teammates, and I don't think it's so much as, oh, well, Carmelo's going to go back to taking all the shots again. Carmelo isn't stupid. He'll pass it to Lin. He'll pass it around the court. He knows Lin has a lot of talent, and he won't let that go to waste. Carmelo won't just shoot up, 30 baskets a game and totally neglect Lin like he's been neglecting most of his teammates for most of the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you made 2 points there. One of them I'm going to get to first is probably the one about Carmelo Anthony returning. And I think that there's going to be a learning curve. I think the Knicks offense is going to have to be centered around Jeremy Lin, around the point guard. That's how Mike D'Antoni's offense was, the high-tempo one, if you remember in his days with Phoenix, when Amari was running it along with Nash at the point and Leandro Barbosa. And you need to build it around Lin. And I think that Carmelo Anthony has to sacrifice his own individual goals for the benefit of the team. That means maybe take less shots and try to fit in. And it's going to be a little bit different. It took a little bit of time, if you remember, in the first half in the game against Toronto when Amari Stoudemire came back after missing a week. So it's going to take some time, and getting to the point with Tim Tebow and those comparisons, you're hearing it all the time on ESPN, and I think that those comparisons are a bit unfair because these two players come from completely different backgrounds. You can't even compare them in a sense. Tim Tebow was the consensus high school All-American favorite coming out of Jacksonville, Florida when he went to the Florida Gators, and he committed there, and then he won 2 Heisman trophies, 2 national championships, and then was drafted in the first round by the Denver Broncos. Then there's all this talk that we know with Tim Tebow that he can't throw the football, and he struggled through the first 3 quarters of those games this past season and won all those games in the fourth quarter. But you know what? Everybody knew who Tim Tebow was. There was all that talk. It wasn't like he was coming out of nowhere to do this. And in a sense, it's almost like we're basically crediting mediocrity in the sense of Tim Tebow because he would start off a game 3 out of 16 and then get hot in the fourth quarter. The thing with Jeremy Lin is, as I mentioned, he came from Harvard. He was not on anybody's radar screen, only averaged 13 points a game, and there he was the first Asian American to play in the NBA, and he was released by the Golden State Warriors and by the Houston Rockets, and then the Knicks took a chance on him because they weren't getting any production at the point guard position, and then he just came out of nowhere. If there's any comparison that you want to make to Jeremy Lin, how about the guy that plays for the Giants, Victor Cruz? Victor Cruz from Paterson, New Jersey, also went undrafted, was nearly cut by the Giants a couple of times, comes out of nowhere, becomes a number 1 receiver, and helps them win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great comparison. I mean, because Victor Cruz, yeah, remember when he was wearing number 3 and was a third-string receiver that you wouldn't even watch during the preseason games because he was just one of the scrubs. And now look at him. I mean, he's everywhere. He's at the Grammys. He won the Super Bowl. He's a star wide receiver of the New York Giants, one of the best in the NFC, one of the best in the NFL. And I'm saying, though, comparing him back to Tim Tebow, I completely agree. Tim Tebow, I mean, if you had said 2 weeks ago, hey, Jeremy Lin is going to start putting up 20 points a game and be the starting point guard for the Knicks, I would have called you crazy. I think everyone would have called you crazy. To say that Tim Tebow would have been starting for the Broncos this year, I would have called you crazy. I knew Kyle Orton was slowing down. I knew it was a matter of time before the Broncos got fed up with him. And Tim Tebow was a first-round draft pick.
Tim Tebow. Everybody knew who this guy was out of college. nobody knew who Jeremy Lin was unless you were the most devout Harvard fan, and even then, you probably had no idea who Jeremy Lin was. And that's why I hate those type of comparisons to him and Tebow. It almost like it devalues what Jeremy Lin has been able to accomplish because there's so much dissension when it comes to Tim Tebow. You either like Tim Tebow or you hate him. There's no in between.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, though. I mean, Jeremy Lin is completely different from Tim Tebow. I mean, it's really an idiotic comparison almost. I mean, respect to sports fans. It's totally. I mean, you want to talk about maybe, maybe how they went on that winning streak and how they might make the playoffs because of Lin. Yes, but that's completely different. The Broncos, they weren't supposed to make the playoffs this year. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs. The Knicks, they were in great shape going into this year. Most people thought after the lockout that they would click well, and clearly
they were top
hadn't.
5 team in the conference.
Yeah,
until
Lin burst onto the scene, and now they're winning again. But it wasn't like the Knicks are this scrappy underdog team with really no names. I mean, Jeremy Lin, if someone put a microphone to your face and said, name the Knicks, you wouldn't say Jeremy Lin. You'd say Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire. Those guys are making big bucks. Try to name 5 players on the Broncos. Ask any NFL fan. They can't do it. I mean,
no, they can't. I mean, it's probably just Tim Tebow and maybe the place kicker Matt Prater, and then you're at a loss for words almost.
I mean, you can name the whole Knicks starting lineup. The Knicks are a premier team in a big market. It's not even a real comparison. You know what? We have 8 minutes left in the show because so far, it's been going great, I think. We just got to move on real quick. A quick discussion back to the Yankees and how now the Yankees have room to spend, and they are basically every sign is pointing to they already have a deal in place for Raul Ibanez. Essentially, they're just waiting for confirmation of disgrace in the commissioner's office. But all signs are pointing to Raul Ibanez becoming the right-handed DH for the New York Yankees next year, or facing right-handers. And this makes, to me, no sense at all.
It makes no sense at all because he's coming off a down year. And I know that some people would say that he can't just go off the previous year, but the thing is, he's pushing 40 years of age, and his numbers went drastically down. He had an on-base percentage, I think it was 282 last year after averaging about a 3.5 in on-base over the last 6 or 7 years. And I always remember in a hitter's ballpark in Philadelphia, and is there really a guarantee that he could play the field every day? I mean, Philadelphia's taking an opportunity on John Mayberry, who they basically have been shuffling up and down the minors, has yet to prove himself in left field because they think he has fresher legs and is a better option than Raul Ibanez. He struck out Ibanez 106 times last year with 100 less at-bats than he had in 2010. And I just feel that why not give Hideki Matsui an opportunity who came on strong in the second half of last year, or bring back Johnny Damon? I know the fans would like those moves, and I think that they're more productive players than Raul Ibanez.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a disgrace how the Yankees are treating Johnny Damon and Hideki Matsui as, oh, you're not an option at all. And I'm just going to bring on a caller here real quick because we only have 6 minutes left. And what are your thoughts on the DH option, whoever just called in?
Yeah, hi. You know me as Yankee Zone on YouTube?
Oh, hey.
Hey, Yankee Zone, what's up?
Yeah, I know, it's good. Yeah, I'm from New York transplant, but I now live in California. I'm like 15 minutes from where Jeremy Lin grew up. I go to his high school a lot for games and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, you went to Palo Alto High School, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, my grandparents live in that town, so I'm like right by there, so I go visit there a lot. I know the area. He's becoming a sensation all over the country and world.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty impressive with Jeremy Lin. So, I mean, did you see him play ever? I mean, that he went to your high school?
It's in the news. He's in the news a lot around here. I remember like when they won the championship, it was a big deal when he was in high school, and now it's just we have a big Asian community around here, and he's just become really popular in the community.
Also, he played, I believe, about 28 games with the Golden State Warriors, not that far from there, I believe. That was last season.
Yeah, it's far away, but he's just like a big sensation. So yeah, it's pretty chill and stuff. I mean, he's very popular and just like everyone's on it. Everyone's on like the bandwagon now with him because he's Asian, pretty much.
So you think that it's a racial bias, but he did win 7 in a row in a sense, and I think the Knicks are just trying to latch up to something. I think that the Knicks have not had that for about 10 years. They haven't won a playoff game since the Jeff Van Gundy era, and I think the fans are hoping that Lin is that savior. I think that it's still a small sample size. He has a tough week ahead of him as he faces Dallas Mavericks tomorrow. He faces the Atlanta Hawks, and then he faces the Miami Heat. I think that's going to be a litmus test, especially with Anthony coming back. But I think that's one of the reasons why you hear so much about Linsanity right now.
Yeah, but then how are they going to match up with the Heat? I mean, I don't see, like, if he turns it over, they're not going to win against.
That's a big problem. Mike Breen was mentioning it, the Knicks announcer on MSG Network a couple of games ago, about how Jeremy Lin has been struggling with turnovers, and he's also been struggling shooting from the perimeter as well. And I think that those are like some rookie mistakes. There is going to be a learning curve that he's going to have to adjust to, and we'll see how it goes against those teams.
I really have this gut feeling that I don't like to talk about. I have a feeling the Miami Heat are going to win it all this year. I don't, like, it's sad to me to say, but
that's every year when you, yeah. I think I got kind of cut off, but I think that any year when you have the Miami Heat, you know, with LeBron James, with Dwayne Wade, with Chris Bosh, you're always going to pick them as the favorites. I mean, there's still a lot to go in this season. The Philadelphia 76ers are one of the surprise teams, and every team is starting to stumble a little bit this season, so I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite in the East or the West right now. And I think that we're going to still have to see. Half the season's been played. The NBA All-Star Game is going to be next week. And I think we're just going to have to see how the second half plays out and just see where the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, and the lockout, it doesn't have any lingering effects, I don't think, at this stage of the NBA season. I mean, it still might. But, yeah, I mean, I don't see the Heat going all the way either. But, I mean, you know, I mean, it's incredible. It's already the first half's over. And I just want to thank you for your call because we got to start wrapping this up. And, you know, just getting real quick back to the Yankees DH. And thank you very much, Yankees Zone, for calling in. And I completely agree with you on everything you said. Really quick to get everything in. Johnny Damon and Becky Matsui are far and away better options than Raul Ibanez. It's stupid how the Yankees are treating this. I mean, both of them are younger. Both of them can still produce. Both of them can still play the field better than Ibanez. It's really idiotic, and they both have played in New York before. There's no doubt in my mind these two guys are way better than Ibanez and should be the DH of the Yankees, and it's horrible the way Cashman has said they're not even options.
Well, I think Cashman just wants to save money at this point, and I think that's one of the reasons why I guess they're not going after Damon and Matsui. Also, there's like one point I want to get across before we end tonight. We can't end the show without mentioning about the death of Gary Carter. Gary Carter,
Absolutely.
at age 57, he died from a brain tumor. He is actually, his number is not retired by the Mets, believe it or not. He went into a Hall of Famer and a Hall of Fame as an Expo. I wanted to hear your thoughts about Gary Carter. I know that we never saw him play, but what are your thoughts about what transpired with Gary Carter, and just from what you read or what you know about Gary Carter, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, Gary Carter, I mean, he was, as I said, as you said, we both never saw him play. But every interview I've heard of him, every game I've ever seen him, I've watched him, you know, like on Mets Classics, and then, you know, watching the 1986 World Series, you know, the replays of it, of course. Carter seemed like, and everyone has said that he was just a terrific person, an incredible defensive catcher, incredible offensively. He was a terrific guy. 57's far too young to die, and Gary Carter left a big impact in New York sports, not even for the Mets, but New York sports, because remember the Yankees and the Rangers and the Knicks really weren't doing anything back then. You know, it was just, he was an incredible guy, and he's going to be missed a lot by the baseball world.
And he was the guy that you counted on, that you would go to the media, and he would stand up for you. And he remember in 1986 in Game 6, he was the guy that got the base hit off Calvin Schiraldi to start off that rally. And that sparked the Mets, and Ray Knight and Kevin Mitchell and so on. And that's what all these Mets fans remember, plus his contributions with the Montreal Expos as well. I think we're up against it. Thanks for joining us tonight on Sports Drive Live. He's Brian Danoff. I'm Gershon, and we'll see you next time.